Honorable Minister of Power, please welcome here Chief Adebayo Adelabu.
Thank you so much. Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Senator Kashim Shettima, GCON. Your Excellency, our host governor, the Governor of Enugu State, Your Excellencies, the Governors of Imo, Anambra, and Ebonyi, the former President of the Senate and the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator Pius Ayim, former governors here present, distinguished senators, honorable members of the House of Representatives, I can see the chairman of the House Committee on Power, the Managing Director and Executive Management of Niger Delta Power Holding Company, distinguished invited guests, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to be attending this event, the launching of the Southeast phase of the Light Up Nigeria project, an initiative of Niger Delta Power Holding Company Limited and its project parties to deliver reliable and quality power supply to industries one cluster at a time. I was privileged to have also attended and taken part in the pilot event at the Agbara Industrial Cluster in Ogun State on the 12th of October 2023. I was a witness to the charge by His Excellency, the Vice President of Federal Republic of Nigeria, to Niger Delta Power Holding Company and the project parties to apply diligent efforts to achieve the objectives of this project and promise the institutional support of the federal government of Nigeria. It is gratifying to see that we are here today to have this interaction with business and governments in the southeast states of Nigeria and flag off the activities that will see to the resolution of the power supply challenges of industries in southeast Nigeria. The Light Up Southeast project has been structured to resolve the major challenges in the Nigerian electricity supply industry since the privatization in 2013. Number one, the lingering infrastructural constraints, especially in the transmission and distribution networks. This is an accumulated problem that has been there in the past decades, which we have not fully attended to. And we believe that for us to have stable, functional, reliable, and uninterrupted electricity, it must be dealt with, especially the evacuation of power generated by the Transmission Company of Nigeria and distribution of this power to the doorsteps of households, businesses, and industries. Secondly, we have experienced liquidity constraints manifested in payment deficits across the various value chains, from payment for gas supply to payment for power delivered at distribution level. I mentioned in one of my press conferences about 2 weeks ago that presently we are owing about 1.3 trillion naira to the power generation companies and about $1.3 billion to the gas supply companies pre-2014. If you add these two together, at today's exchange rates is in excess of 3 trillion naira. Which sector will operate effectively and efficiently with a debt overhang close to 4 trillion naira? This is something that we need to address if we must move forward. And which is actually the reason why the sector has not been attractive to new investors, both locally and internationally. We also need debt capital rather, in this sector. Which bank will be bold enough to put its money in the sector where there is no line of sight on how this money will be paid back? So a lot of the lenders have distanced themselves from this sector, which is a major issue. The Light Up Southeast will attract financing for required infrastructure upgrades, and we use metering and related technology to achieve payment assurance. We're going to do things differently here. We will prove to the investors that if you put your money in this project, you are going to get your money back. That investment recovery assurance is required. And the banks too will be willing, because we're going to use technology, especially smart meters, to ensure that we collect electricity bills from consumers. The key objective is to enable industries achieve savings from the exorbitant cost of self-generation and increase their output through a renewed focus on their core business operations. Today, over 50% of industries, due to the instability in our electricity sector, they are completely off-grid. They now have captive powers in their factories where they generate power of their own. You can imagine the number of industries that we have, and they have their own separate power generating plants. Fine, it gives them stable power, but it is not economically viable for us as a country, because every other thing actually pass on to the costs of goods produced and eventually transfer to the pricing of these commodities, which is a major driver of the inflation that we have been seeing in food, commodity, and service prices across the length and breadth of Nigeria. Components of the project will include designing, financing, developing, operating, and managing last mile distribution, and where necessary, transmission infrastructure to secure safe and reliable delivery to the customer's premises. We want to ensure a seamless operation of the entire value chain, from generation to long distance transportation and to delivery, which is the distribution to end consumers. The Light Up Nigeria project is also designed as a bilateral sales solution that will move away from the bulk purchase arrangement with the Nigeria Bulk Electricity Trading Company, MBET, to more bankable bilateral sales that will achieve, number one, efficient power dispatch that minimizes technical losses through newly built or upgrade of transmission and distribution infrastructure with protections against unauthorized connections or network-wide defaults. In the process of transporting power or transmitting power, using the technical term, a lot of power is lost because of deteriorated infrastructure that we have. But in this project, we're going to ensure that we carry out an upgrade of the transmission and distribution infrastructures to ensure that technical losses are actually minimized in the process of transporting or transmitting power. There will also be full contract payments using technology and smart metering, among other mechanisms that minimize or eliminate commercial losses. This commercial or collection losses is highly prevalent in our industry. The average loss that we have today in terms of bills not collected is about 52%. If you want to actually zero it to specific distribution companies, we have discos that have commercial collection losses as high as 75%, which means about 3/4 of the bills sent out are not collected. We cannot guarantee the continuity and sustainability of this sector in this manner. So it's actually the collective efforts of the power sector players and even the consumers that can transform this sector. We have our roles to play, but the consumers also have a great role to play. If you are asking for stable and functional electricity, you must be able to pay your bills. If you don't pay your bill, it leads to grounding to zero the operations of the power sector players. So we don't need it. The value chain must be able to operate uninterrupted. Economic development through the reduction in energy costs for industries and homes. This is also one of the major benefits of this project. If the cost of energy to both our households, to businesses, to institutions both educational and health institutions and to industries. If it is low, prices of goods and services will also come down. And this will improve the purchasing power of household income. We are going to get value for our naira. Our naira becomes appreciating, and the store of value function of naira comes back, unlike what we currently experience. The benefits of the project will include, number one, savings in the federal government of Nigeria public expenditure on subsidies and intervention projects. Number two, significant savings in the energy costs for target large-scale industry and residential consumers, which I've also talked about. Three, enable upscaling of production capacities by the industrial customers with increased export trading opportunities and foreign exchange earnings. This is quite logical. Once we have stable and functional electricity that's quite affordable, it's going to improve our production levels. Apart from achieving
infrastructural development in the new build facility that will be commissioned, to
foreign currency earnings, which will improve from the supply side the stock of our foreign currency and also improve the value of the naira. Infrastructural development in the new build facilities that will be commissioned. And lastly, job creation, skills, technology, and knowledge transfer. Job creation especially. We have a very high rate of unemployment. And we know that it is because a lot of industries have packed up. A lot of companies have folded. And they have retrenched their staff. Even small businesses cannot develop because they require power. The artisans have turned to Okada drivers, Okada riders. If this is restored, we believe we are going to reverse this ugly trend. And there will be jobs for our people. Once there is job for our people, there will be enough purchasing capacity of our citizens. And I believe this will all go well for the economy. To conclude, I'm here therefore to provide assurance to the business community that the Light Up Southeast project will be pursued diligently to achieve its objectives. I will invite your cooperation as the project moves towards implementation. But before I leave this podium, there are three issues I want to talk about in 3 minutes. It is when you look at the problems that we have in the power sector today, they look so simple. Improving our generation capacity, improving our evacuation to transmission, improving our transmission grid, improving the distribution infrastructure, reducing our meter gap. These are simple issues. But before me, there have been over 40 ministers of power. Why are we still at this level? Why are we still revolving around 3,000 to 4,000 megawatts of power for over 200 million people? South Korea, with just about 49 million people, produces 130,000 megawatts of power. The Republic of China, with 1.4 billion people, produce 1.3 million megawatts of power. Even South Africa produces about 55,000 megawatts of power. But since I was a child, I've been hearing about 4,000. Today, I am approaching 53. We are still on the 4,000 megawatts, which means that the problem goes beyond the simple surface issues. There must be fundamental issues with this sector. It is those fundamental issues that this administration is trying to address so that we can bring lasting, enduring, sustainable solution to the power sector. And our industries will grow in leaps and bounds. But the issue is we need time, we need patience, we need trust, and we need confidence. So the value chain commercial efficiency is what we needed to ensure sustainability and continuity of this sector. If any sector is not operating on the natural commercial flow, it is always a problem. The moment government pledges to intervene, these pledges must come in handy, prompt, and fully cash backed. The liquidity provision for funding and investment for infrastructural upgrade and expansion is needed. Power investment is no small investment. To build a 132 kV substation or a 330 kV substation today, we are talking nothing less than $50 million. To build 100 kilometers of high voltage power line of 132 or 330 kV, it's in hundreds of $millions. So we need investment, both equity, cash injection, and debt capital. So this industry must be attractive to both local and foreign investors, and as well as bankers. It must be attractive to them. Lastly, sir, we want to appeal to power consumers in the Southeast. We want to appeal to my excellencies, the governors of the Southeast, to help this sector. There are some peculiar issues that we experience more in the Southeast area, and you must help us to address those issues. Number one, even though this is general across the nation, is vandalization. It is only in Nigeria that we will deliberately destroy our national assets, power assets, bringing down power transmission towers, bringing down transmission lines. Why will we not experience grid collapse? This is even more prevalent in the northern part of the country. Apart from the transmission power assets, we have distribution power assets. People go into transformers, they loot them. They also loot our substations. We need protection of these assets for us to guarantee uninterrupted power supply. And lastly is the issue of right of way, which is most peculiar to the Southeast. I must be frank and truthful. We have a number of completed transmission substations here that we cannot energize. They've been there for 5 years, 10 years. Even the items in there have been looted. Why? We cannot energize them because we could not connect the transmission power lines. And the main issue is right of way. We found it difficult to install our power lines in the Southeast. If we come for enumeration to determine who and who are we going to pay compensation to, for us to be able to install power lines. If you go back to Abuja with 100 households with structures under the power lines, by the time we come back, the structure will have increased to 1,000. And out of this 1,000, shrines will be about 100. And they will force us that we must pay to the gods before we can actually clear. So we have lot and lot of abandoned transmission projects, which include substations and transmission power lines. We need this for us to move forward. So with this, I want to thank you for the support, Your Excellencies, and I wish us a very fruitful deliberation. Thank you for your kind attention. God bless you.
An eloquent rendition there from the Honorable Minister. If you don't mind, may we give him another round of applause. Thank you. Thank you, sir. We shall be moving fast. Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, permit me to introduce a man who broke an over 2 decades of water scarcity in Enugu City, more than 40 years, and he came and promised 180 days. Even before then, it was achieved, and the round of applause will make him happy. Thank you. Permit me, therefore, to introduce the founder of Pinnacle Oil and Gas Limited, leader of Nigeria downstream sector,